All right. So I'm here. We're going to do some live with Hayjivepicks on UFC 282. So see if we can get him in here right quick. He hasn't done the live before, so it might take him a minute to get it all figured out. Right. I sent you the invite, man. All right. All right. So accepted it. Request to join one more time. All right. That should work. All right, man.
What's going on?
All right. All right. Cool. Yeah.
Todd, the man, the myth, the
So
legend. What's going on, man?
now that I appreciate you taking time to do this. And I'm sorry we got delayed, but
Absolutely.
let's kind of talk about you first, since we're doing the kind of a feature on you, and then we'll talk kind of about some of the things that we just saw. So kind of talk about your content first.
Yeah, I started probably, it was the end of June, so pretty much beginning of July. So I haven't been doing it that long, but I really just wanted to start doing content because I consume so much content in this space. And I'm like, if I'm consuming this much content, I might as well put myself out there and start um, making my own. And, so I'm not just wasting time consuming and more so creating. And it's gone really well. I'm enjoying it. Made a lot of connections like yourself and a lot of other people in the space. Super fun. I love doing it. And looking forward to what comes from it because it's grown more than I thought at the
Now,
beginning. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I do a lot of like bets and picks, and then a lot of UFC
now,
content as
before we
well. So
continue, maybe tell people who you are, like what your name is and stuff. I forgot to ask you that.
yeah, my name is I'm Hayden. My real name's Hayden. I go by Hayjivepicks. Hayjive is like the first three letters of my first name, and then J is my middle name, and then Hive or Ive. My last name's Iverson, so it's just like a combined of all my three names. So yeah, I'm originally from Wisconsin. Just moved down to Texas, and it's just super into sports all my life. And so I've mainly watched football. That's like been my main thing. And then as of the past couple of years, been super into UFC, and I've kind of sparked a new love with
Now,
UFC and
tell me
MMA.
about like when you first saw it, or when you first kind of got introduced to the sport.
Let's see, I've always like sort of followed it, like from afar, but I was so consumed when I was like playing sports with the sports that I played because I never trained MMA, never been super into it like that. But once I stopped playing sports and I had more time to, I guess, watch sports and consume everything, once I got into watching UFC, I'm like, this is the best sport out of anything. I just love watching it and diving deep into it and watching tape, like just because it's still pretty new to me. I'd say I've been watching it for like 2 years, but I consume so much content of it, and I watch so many fights that it's maybe just the newness to it that I love it, and it's so I can learn so much so quickly
Now
on
you're
it
kind
too. So
of more of a betting
yeah, that's pretty much it.
slant. Why is that?
I just for me, I've always cared more about it if I had like a stake in it money wise. So if it's like a fight that's not like I'll watch every fight on every card every Saturday, and so if it's a fight that's like not super intriguing, if it's two guys coming off contender series, or if it's like some low level women's MMA fight, I like to have just like a little bit of stake in it so I could get the juices going a little bit more. But in general, I've just always been kind of a gambling person, a risky person. I like to have stakes in it, and it's not just for fun, as people would say. So I like to have a side too. It's better to root for someone, even if it's a big fight and you're not really sure who's going to win. Just throw $20 on one side, and you have someone to root for. And if you like both fighters, you win. You win one way if you win, and then you win the other way if the other person wins. So it's kind of like a
Now,
built-in
do you bet
win-win.
on
You know
all
what I'm saying?
the fights, or just do you do like a parlay each event?
I usually do. I would probably say I have some kind of stake in every fight, and whether it's like just a long shot round prop of like a certain guy finishing in a certain round. If it's, a lower level, like the first fight on UFC 282 was the Cameron Simon and Steven Kozlow. I just threw round one submission prop for Steven Kozlow because he had 6 submissions. And it's like, he could go out there, nobody knows him, could go out there and just sub him real quick in the first round, just to, have some kind of stake in it. And then it gets you more intrigued to watch it. But either way, I'll watch all the fights, even if I don't necessarily have a stake in it. But it just makes it a little bit more interesting for me to have something that could pop off, and it's better content too, because if you hit something that's crazy, you can throw that out there like I hit this 10-1 play, something like that.
Now,
So
do you
it's good for
feel like
content
people are
too.
kind of coming to you now since you do more of the gambling slant? Do people ask you, should I do this? Should I do that?
Yeah, we've seen sports gambling get super mainstream within the past year or two, and so I think that edge kind of brings in a bigger audience as well to my page. If people are looking for picks, I watch a lot of film on these guys, and I put a lot of time into what I'm going to play. So I can confidently give them my best, uh, you perspective on how a fight's going to go. And if I was just going to throw whatever on whatever and not really look at it, I wouldn't be as confident in sharing what I thought was going to happen in the fight. So, yeah, I do get people coming to me and asking for certain plays and stuff like that, but it's like at the end of the day, it is gambling. I'm probably going to be wrong, 40-50% of the time. So you got to be able to handle your
But do you
losses as
feel like
well.
you're kind of finding some sources inside the community at all, or anything like that, to help you?
Sources as far as to
Yeah,
help
like
me
maybe
win
some
bets or what?
inside knowledge or people in camps or whatever.
Oh no, not inside camps, nothing like that. I guess I'm in like a few group chats, and like one of them, it's super rare, but like one of them trained at like Extreme Couture or anything and saw like Chris Curtis training up to this fight, but it's not like he can really give me or give anyone certain accurate information. So nothing really like insider. Other than that, it's mainly just bouncing off ideas with each other, how a fight's going to go, stuff like that. But as far as any insight or anything, like I wish, because that would make it a lot
Now,
easier.
did
But
you ever
no,
like subscribe to James Cross's Discord or anything?
no. But the funny thing is, he started that 1% club. I don't even think it was a year ago. And I started watching his TikTok account where he would give out the plays every week before I even started mine. So I've been following his picks for probably since he started it. I never subscribed to the Discord or anything. I didn't pay for anything, but he would post, his breakdowns on certain fights on his TikTok. I don't think it's up anymore, but I would back those plays, and on more times than not, they would lose. So I was like, this is weird. Like, there was a certain one. He had Song Woo Choi. I can just off the top of my head, I can remember when he fought Josh Kulabau. Song Woo Choi was like a minus 235 favorite. So Kulabau was almost a 2-1 underdog, and Kulabau went out there and dropped him like 3 times and won super easily. I'm like, all right, Krause knows nothing, man. What are we doing here? So
Now,
yeah,
when you saw all this stuff come up with him, what did you think of it being, kind of a betting guy? What did you think of it?
yeah, that's a good question. So originally, I'm like thinking about. I supported the UFC in letting the athletes bet on themselves or betting on other fights, because it's like I just like when people have that freedom to do what they want. So I was all about it. And then after thinking about it, like it's some sort of like insider trading if you look at it deep enough. James Krause is around fighters the whole week of the whole fight week. If he goes to Vegas, to the Apex, to the PI, he sees most of these fighters leading up to the fights on Saturday. So if someone's having a bad weight cut, if someone's getting extra treatment with the trainers or anything like that, he could see that. Like whether he tells anyone about it or not, he can see all these little things that could very well play into the fight on Saturday. So it is definitely an edge to have that information, even with his own fighters and other fighters he sees throughout the week. So after thinking about it like that and dissecting it a little bit more, and instead of just taking it at face value, it is definitely an edge, and they probably shouldn't be able to bet on anything like that. It's unfortunate though, because there's so many scenarios where they don't have any information, and it's like, why not just let them do whatever they want? But at the same time, you have to pretty much go with that 5% of the time where they have information, and it could lead to information that the public doesn't have. So it's basically insider trading that is somewhat allowed in our stock market society and everything, but in the sports gambling world, the books don't like it, and I can see
Like
why.
if
So
he bet on his own fighter to win outright, I don't think that's a big deal. But if he was betting on like he's going to win in the 3rd round, the 2nd round, that's where I'd say, all right, that's a little too
yeah,
specific. Yeah.
that's a little sketchy, a little sketchy. Or if he has like you can bet on a winner, a fighter
Mm-hmm.
to win by decision or anything. He could
Right.
tell him like, oh, just coast, get to the decision, stuff like that. So that's another thing where me and Nolan, the parlay, we run the double leg MMA show. We've talked about this on our channel. It's like we've seen so many times where James Krause is getting in these fighters' faces in between rounds, giving them just the biggest fire up speech in between rounds, and to think back and be like, he probably had money on this guy, and he's about to lose the money he had on him, and this fighter's about to lose his win bonus, so he's going to lose that too. So there's a lot on the line for James Krause in these situations, and I understand why he would be so upset at these fighters. So
What
interesting
do you
stuff,
think? Do
though.
you think he's going
Interesting
to go
stuff.
down?
I hope not. I really hope not, because I think he was a big face in the sport, and it's like you don't really want to lose someone like that is known, and he's a pretty good coach. I would say he's one of the better coaches, in the UFC and MMA. So I hope he doesn't. But I mean, if he had did stuff like that. From what I've heard, um, a lot of people that know him have come out and said they haven't gotten any insider information or anything. So I don't know that he was necessarily
Hmm.
leaking this information to people in order to, help them win bets, but for his own sake, like I don't think there's any way around it. He definitely had more information than the general public would. So I hope he doesn't go down. Out of maybe he gets banned from all sports books and stuff like that. But more importantly, the fighters are taking the harder hit to it. Brandon Moreno's got to find a new coach with the biggest fight of his
Yeah,
career on the
for
line. So
sure.
unfortunate in
Yeah, the
both
investigation would probably
scenarios.
take like a year, 18 months. Guys can't wait for that
Yeah,
to finish up, you know. So I don't blame him for selling off his assets. I mean, he can't hold the gym up, hold the fighters up. I think that only makes sense. People say, oh,
right.
he's in trouble then. Well, I mean, no, not necessarily. He can't hold the gym hostage while he's on, being investigated. That's not good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, a lot of fighters were flocking to that gym too. So they made big life changes as far as moving
Yeah.
to, was it Kansas City? Is it where the gym was at? So that that's a big life change to make a move like that, and then to get hit with that, and you got to find a whole new gym, make a whole new change.
Yeah. And
Unfortunate
I think a lot of the
for
community
them.
is kind of looks at him as guilty already, which is kind of weird, I think.
Yeah, I don't. I'm always a proven innocent or innocent until proven guilty kind of guy. But and not to say that he's innocent because I do think,
Hmm.
he was allowed to do it. That's the thing. Like he was allowed to do it. It wasn't against the rules. But at the same time, those rules were probably just not good rules. So I don't know that he's breaking any rules. The real thing where he could get screwed on is if they prove that that fight was fixed with Derek Minner and that whole scenario. But everything leading up to that, like I don't think he did much wrong leading up to that point. It's just that tipping point where things got really sketchy that could make it all go wrong for him. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested to
Yeah,
see
the
how it
Minner
plays
fight
out.
is a little
Honestly,
suspicious. It's hard to if on it, but it's going to be
very
something that's hard to prove. Now, they'll look
yeah.
at text messages and calls and all that kind of stuff. If they did communicate beforehand and it was, knowledge that they were going to do it, they could be in hot water. You're right. But the other, like you're saying,
Yeah,
sports books,
it's a big red
that's
flag.
about it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big red flag because that whole line movement. I was watching it, happen live because I was watching the fights. I usually watch the live betting markets while they're going on just to see if there's any value there and stuff. And I saw that Nurden had moved to a minus 400 favorite after he was like minus 200, minus 220 the whole week. And I was like, what is going on here? I don't think I've ever seen this. And then Minner goes down with that injury. And I'm like, okay, that looked a little weird, it looked a little sketchy, but I'm like, I don't know, maybe just people just knew, that Minner was hurt because even like that TJ fight, like TJ was going into that fight with that shoulder injury, and there's no way people around him didn't know he had that shoulder injury if he said it's popping out, what do you say, like 30, 40
Yeah.
times during his camp. So there's people around him that know that he's not going to be able to go in this fight and last very long. So did they capitalize on that? Like, if I were them, I mean, how do you not? Like, this guy's probably going to go in there and lose pretty quickly. So I don't know. I mean, that's another thing. Like, these fighters going in with injuries or they're sick. Bryce Mitchell just said he had the flu in his fight with Taporia. So I'm like, people know stuff. It's not like this fighter's just keeping it to himself. People around him throughout the week, throughout his camp, they all know stuff. So how far or how deep do you go to where these people can't bet on fights if they're around this person? Because is it like nobody at their gym can bet on fights? Because all those people at the gym know what's going on. So it's super deep. How deep are you going to go? How deep are you going to ban people? If it's just family, coaches, or if it's anyone that's ever been in contact with this person, stuff like that. So we'll
Now,
see.
let's talk
We will
about
see.
UFC 282 because obviously you made videos of your reactions. So let's talk about Pimblett Jared
Oh, yeah.
Gordon fight. Go ahead and kind of tell me what you're thinking.
All right. Well, I actually went back and rewatched it today, and looked over the judges' scorecards. I believe I have it pulled up. I don't have it pulled up, but I believe two of the judges gave the first round to Jared Gordon, or not Jared Gordon, to Paddy Pimblett. One of them gave it to Jared Gordon. And I see no way that you could give that round to Paddy Pimblett. Another thing, as I was going through and rewatching, you know how they show the strike numbers? They'll just flash the strike numbers for rounds throughout the fight on the screen. At the 47-second mark in the second round, for round one, they had Pimblett at 22 strikes, significant strikes, Jared Gordon 34 significant strikes. So this is like an update of where these strike numbers are. And then on the official significant strike counter, they had Paddy Pimblett at 29 in the first round and Jared Gordon at 30. So they gave Paddy more and they took strikes away from Jared Gordon. So just looking back at that, I'm like, this is weird. And to back up that claim, like I had Paddy Pimblett, one of my bets was Paddy Pimblett under 45.5 significant strikes. So I was keeping a good eye on that significant strike number as I'm watching it. And I thought for sure Jared Gordon took the first round, landed the cleaner shots, landed the more impactful shots, and landed more shots, and got the takedown at the end of the first round. So I don't see in any world that you can give that to Paddy Pimblett, but two of the judges did. Round two, a more even round, but honestly, I would still give the edge to Jared Gordon. The whole fight, I mean, Jared Gordon's landing the cleaner shots because Paddy Pimblett's leaving his chin up right in the air. His hands are way out here. He punches, looping. These looping punches. Jared Gordon is much more higher guard. He's going to land cleaner shots, just all around cleaner stand-up game. And he's, enforcing his will, getting control time. I know they don't judge control time super highly now, but at the same time, he's taking him to places where Paddy didn't want to be. So I give round two to Jared Gordon. And then the third round is kind of like this stalling match, and Jared Gordon is, pushing him up against the fence and seems like he's coasting to a win, even though Paddy said he coasted to a win. So I don't really know. I don't understand that part. But in my book, I had it 30-27, Jared Gordon. And so I'm like, we're going to go to this decision. And I think there's no way this would be a blatant robbery if they give this fight to Paddy Pimblett. You could say Sean O'Malley got the robbery over Peter Yan, but if you go back and watch the fight, or if you even just watch the fight, you're like, okay, it was a close fight, but that second round with Peter Yan getting all that control time on the ground and beating Sean O'Malley, it seemed like Peter won, but there's definitely an argument that Sean O'Malley won rounds 1 and round 2. And if you look at their faces, Peter Yan's bloodied, everything like that. If you look at Paddy Pimblett and Jared Gordon, neither of their faces are like super bloody. So it's not like one side really did a shit ton more damage. But in my mind, I'm like, if they give Paddy Pimblett this decision, this is blatant robbery. And I had money on Paddy Pimblett, so I'm fully expecting to lose my money. And then they come out and say, by unanimous decision, 29-28. And I'm thinking Jared Gordon, obviously, they probably give him rounds 1 and round 3. And then they say Paddy Pimblett, and I was just absolutely shocked. I was watching it with my friend here, and we were just like, there's no way he won that fight. There's no way. Like, Jared Gordon arguably won all 3 rounds. In my mind, clearly won 2 of the rounds. And so I was just absolutely shocked. And then the real thing that I think just really lost a lot of people for Paddy Pimblett's, fan base is the way he handled it. Is like, you clearly, I mean, 98% of people I see are like, Paddy Pimblett lost. He lost. And then Paddy goes ahead and acts like he won like easily. And I'm like, there's no way you didn't win easily. You looked really bad. You were a minus 250 favorite. You should go out there and enforce your will. Take him to the ground. That's where you excel. Smoke him basically. You're a minus 250 favorite. You should smoke him. And he looked absolutely terrible. I mean, he's going to get dropped by anyone in the top 15. I did a video today, named 10, 15 other lightweights that would beat him. So it's like the Paddy hype train took a big hit. As far as, fan base go, his name's always going to be in the news, but I think he lost a lot of fans with how he handled everything. Just by saying that he won easily and it was the fight of the night, clearly not the fight of the night. It was one of the more boring fights of the night, maybe the worst fight of the night. So I didn't like how he handled it. I don't think he won. I think he lost a lot of stock. So I feel bad for Jared Gordon too, because all the odds were against him, and I think he put on a good performance. Not that I'm some big Jared Gordon fan, but I'll call
the other thing I didn't like was Dana White standing with the Barstool guys while
I didn't like that either. Yeah.
It's like he has no self-awareness. Why would you do that? Even if you wanted Paddy to win, why on earth would you couldn't look like you're favoring one guy more over the other more by doing something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't like that either. It just was a really bad visual, an overall bad look for the UFC on Saturday as far as the last 2 fights went. That was a great card leading up to those last 2 fights. It really could have been one of the better cards of the year, and then just to end with those last 2 fights and how they ended, it sucked. It sucked, man. And that visual with Dana White and the Barstool guys, not a good visual. I don't know why you need to be over there. Maybe, he doesn't really care what people think. That's the thing. He just doesn't really care what people think. So, it helps him in some ways. It bites him in the ass in other ways, just like we saw.
But when they're having an issue with credibility, where they're looking at whether you might have had a fixed fight. Now you're standing with these guys. That just gives more fuel to the fire that you're favoring one fighter over the other, that the decision isn't above board. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It is crazy. And, he gave that nod, yeah, he won, which is really the only thing he could do, because it's not like he could necessarily act shocked, because it's his guy. Paddy Pimblett's his guy. He wants to make him this cash cow and everything. So if he acts like it was a robbery, it's a bad look. But at the same way, it was a lose-lose scenario for him. Just an absolute lose-lose scenario. Paddy wins, he gives the nod. If he loses, he's in front of the Barstool guys who are going to be upset about it and everything. So it's just a bad scenario. I bet if he went back and did it again, he wouldn't be around them given that decision. So
I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was him, and he asked a good question. Is the UFC broken, with these decisions that have happened? What do you think?
Oh, God. As far as the judging and, it seems like every weekend we get, some controversial decision. Is it broken? I don't know, man. That's a tough one, because, you even saw it. You could say MMA judging is broken because you saw it in Bellator this past Friday when Sabatello gives the 50-45 and then Stotts gets 48-47 on the other judges' scorecards. So it's not just the UFC. The UFC doesn't control who judges these fights. But it is frustrating because your excuse is to not leave it to the judges, but at the same time, you can't just go out and finish everybody, and you have to have faith that the judges are going to be able to score a fight properly. It's part of the sport. So I don't think it's broken, but it's just something that needs to be addressed because whenever something happens like this, they don't really address it. It's just kind of like, it is what it is. And that's just part of the game. Like, if you don't want to have the judges screw you over, don't let it go to decision. But it's part of the game. The decision part is a big part of the game. A lot of fighters don't go out there and get finishes. There was only 2 fights that went to decision on this card, and they were both controversial. So it's like, how can you have 12 fights on a card and the only fights that go to decision are both, screwy? So yeah, it's just frustrating because nothing gets done about it. And maybe the UFC should do more as far as educating how these fights are scored, because I know they go over it usually at like the top of the hour as far as when the main card starts and everything like that. But I don't know, maybe just put something out on like YouTube where it's easily digestible. People can go back and like see how these judges are supposed to be looking at the fight and judging it and scoring it. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I hope it's not broken because I like it, but it is frustrating.
Now let's talk about Patty. You kind of were going at that, but let's go at it a little bit more. So, first couple of fights, he looks pretty good. And then this fight, some people, it was just blatantly exposed. Others are saying maybe he had a bad night. What do you think?
Yeah, I was overall very disappointed in his performance, but I will give him a little bit of a pass. He did say he hurt his ankle in that first round, and when I went back and watched it, I definitely saw where he hurt that ankle. So I don't know how much that played into the fight, because it did seem when he was fighting, he looked okay. Like maybe he was just toughing it out and everything. But I was just super disappointed he didn't take it to the ground, because not only was he getting pieced up on the feet by Jared Gordon, it was like, okay, you've won your last 2 fights by submission. You've showed off these great ground skills. Are you really going to go into this fight on the biggest stage of your career and stand with this guy who's consistently cracking you, and then you're not even going to try to shoot for a takedown? You're not even, he doesn't have great takedowns in general. That's kind of a big flaw of his as well. He has a great ground game, but he can't really get it there on his own. And his striking is just so underwhelming. I mean, he looks like he's throwing hard, but does he hit hard? He's had 4 UFC fights. His first fight, he got the knockout, but it took him like 20 shots to get this knockout win. So it's just underwhelming as a whole. That's the best way I can describe his performance last Saturday, because he's so hyped up, and you have to be able to live up to that hype. And he looked really bad in really everywhere. Jared Gordon is solid everywhere, but he's not anything special everywhere. He's pretty much just gonna, give you regular fights day in and day out. He's gonna be pretty consistent about it. And he made Jared Gordon look like a stud on feet. His striking defense was just absolutely terrible. Left his chin up. Was just his best defense was to back up and just try to get out of range, but he would never get out of range. So just disappointing, very disappointing, because he had that hype level of where he could be this massive superstar, and then he goes out and just lays a dud, and it just kind of hurt everything. And then the way he handled it, just not good. So, I mean, he's probably, I would say, top 35 lightweights in the UFC. Like, I think there's just so many other. I mean, lightweight division is so stacked in general. So, I mean, he's going into a tough division. If you feed him to anyone in the top 15, I think they're just rolling him. And I think he loses to probably anyone within the top 30. So, at least if he fights like he did on Saturday. So, I don't know. I don't think he sucks, but he just very underwhelming for how hyped up he is.
He also
And it's
has
disappointing because the
he
UFC
also
kind of
has a
needs
higher
him.
degree of difficulty than Connor, I think, because he's fighting at 155 the whole time. You know, Connor was 45.
Yeah.
Yeah. No?
Yeah, he doesn't do himself any favors with the when he gets super fat. It's like, okay, maybe you could be a 145er if you didn't balloon up to 200 every time, because he said that weight cut isn't that hard on him. So it's like, okay, maybe if you didn't stuff your face for 3 months and then have to cut 45 pounds, maybe you could be a 145er and that's a better division for you. But
Yeah.
I mean, he did look pretty big against Jared Gordon. I'll give him that. I mean, he looked big. He looked filled out. And that's another thing that I was surprised. It looks like Paddy Pimblett was the bigger dude. Why not use that advantage and, wear on him, wear on Jared Gordon? Because Jared Gordon got worn out by Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson submitted in the third round, just pretty much wore him out on the ground. And in my opinion, that was the path to victory for Paddy Pimblett. Do what Grant Dawson did, but he didn't do that at all. So that just showed you, like, Paddy Pimblett is not on the level of like a Grant Dawson, who's not even in the top 15, kind of on the outside. And it's just,
Plus
a bad look.
It's not like he's young. He's going to be 29, like, I think pretty soon. So it's like, high can his ceiling be given all that stuff,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just interested to see who they give him next. It's like, do you give him someone better than Jared Gordon because he won, or are you like, rolling back the tape a little bit and being like, all right, we can't, give him a ranked fight. We can't give him someone right outside the top 15 because he's probably going to lose. So who do you give him next? Do you think there's anyone that he would match up against decently?
Yeah, and I'd have to think, you'd have to think about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm hearing maybe Clay Guida. I'm like, that's probably the only. I'd honestly think Clay Guida might beat him. Like, Clay Guida could probably just wrestle him the whole 3 rounds. And yeah, I don't think Patty's gonna, spark him on the feet. Clay Guida's pretty durable and he's got cardio for days. It really just be if Patty can, catch something on the ground. So, hey, I don't know. I'm interested to see where it goes.
Sanchez or, Donald's.
Somebody. They got to give him a
Donald's
winnable fight and get that hype train back.
He's fighting 70. Who could they bring him back against? Oh, man. Maybe Bryce?
I don't know.
Maybe Bryce Mitchell?
I don't know.
Bryce
would probably have the way with him.
That might be interesting.
Yeah. Smaller guy,
coming off got beat up
I don't know. I mean,
in this fight. Yeah, maybe
they Yeah. I'll tell you, they don't want to feed him to Ilya Taporia because that he might end Paddy Pimblett's career if that happens.
Yeah. But they might say, hey, do this Bryce Mitchell match, kind of matches up with you kind of good. And he's coming off a fight where he got, beat up pretty bad. Maybe we could risk this one. Highly ranked.
Yeah.
We could try and do this one because it's more of a ground guy. Let's try.
Yeah, I would like to. I mean, it's an interesting fight. I don't think it would actually happen though, just because Bryce probably not going to want to go up to 155, and he's not a super big guy at 145 in general. I mean, he's not like a super muscular guy. Probably makes 145 fairly easily.
I don't know.
155, I think he'd be pretty significantly undersized.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They might try to pull someone from 45 to fight him because like you're saying, there's not a lot of options.
No, there's really
Now
not.
let's talk about
There's really not. I think Jared Gordon was
no,
probably
no,
go
let's
ahead, go
talk
ahead.
about Jan and Ankalaev now, since we didn't get to that. What did you think about that decision?
Yeah. Yeah. That one, once again, I mean, I'm biased because I had Magomed Ankalaev for a bet. But at the same time, I had Paddy Pimblett. I could recognize that Paddy Pimblett lost, so bear with me as far as that goes. But in my opinion, I had the scoring 49-46 Ankalaev. So I gave Ankalaev round 1, round 3, 4, and 5. I don't think he won 2. Rounds 1 and 3 were close, but overall Ankalaev outstruck Jan in both of those rounds. So by the numbers, Ankalaev won. Jan didn't have any control time. So by the numbers, Ankalaev outstruck him in 4 of 5 rounds. The real thing was those leg kicks and the damage in the second round kind of carried over into the third round, and I think that's what people kind of thought as far as scoring wise and why they would give Jan that round for round 3. Because I went back and watched it, and Jan landed, I believe it was 6 leg kicks in round 3, and other than that, he didn't land a ton as far as to the body and to the head. So those leg kicks carrying over from round 2 to round 3, the damage that carried over, I think in people's minds, they were like, he almost, I mean, I don't really want to say it, but like he almost got a finish with the leg kicks as far as how much damage he was doing with them. But Ankalaev in that third round, after he got hit with like 1 or 2 of them, was like, all right, I can't keep standing at kicking range, and I need to get this fight to where it suits me best, even though it might not be the best for the crowd. So I think, a minute or 2 into that fight, or into that round 3, Ankalaev made the switch and took the round. And then after that, just dominated. And I gave the first round to Ankalaev. It was a close round, but the leg kicks were the big thing. People are always talking about the leg kicks, which, yes, they do damage, but at the start of the fight, it's not going to do as much damage as in later in the fight because the damage isn't accumulated. So I was just disappointed that it was a draw. I hate when fights end in a draw. I would have rather seen them just throw them out there for a 6th round and just be like, all right, the winner takes the belt. Especially in championship scenarios, it shouldn't ever end in a draw. Like they do the Ultimate Fighter, where they do the 2-round fights, and then if it's tied, they go to the sudden death round. It's like, why don't they just do that for a title fight? Like, it's pretty much the same thing. So I personally thought Ankalaev won. Disappointed that it was a draw. I would have rather just had it swing one way or the other. But overall, I didn't think it was a great fight. I didn't think it was a bad fight. Dana White came out and said it was a bad fight. It was a terrible fight. I didn't think it was a bad fight. But, yeah, just overall disappointing.
Now, what did you think about him throwing Jamal and Glover together like that?
I mean, I think he kind of had to. It's like this light heavyweight division seems just cursed. It's like you got to do something, to get a champion in there so you can promote him. You know what I'm saying? And Glover's getting old, so I mean he needs to fight, and Glover wants to fight in Brazil. So, and they needed a bigger headliner than Moreno and Figueiredo. So it made sense to do that. And who knows, maybe they were like had that all a part of the plan. They say all the conspiracies of the UFC with everything that goes down. Maybe that was just all part of the
Now,
plan. But yeah, I'm pretty
Shogo
excited
brought
for
up
that fight though.
Jim
Good
Miller.
fight.
No way in hell Patty beats Jim Miller. You're crazy. Jim Miller would beat
I think he might.
Yeah,
I actually think he might.
good.
If Patty fights like he did Saturday, yeah,
Yeah, he's
I
not a
definitely see
scrub.
it.
He's good, Chris.
Crafty vet.
No.
Yeah, not a scrub at all.
It's crazy
Not a
what
scrub
you
at all.
said. It's hard to think of someone that you can put him in there next. Even taking time to think about it. It's like,
Yeah, I don't know. It's like Jared Gordon was probably the best matchup for him, and he barely beat him, and he don't even think he beat him. So it's like, who are you gonna give him ahead of Jared Gordon that he's gonna beat? Not many
you should
people.
put that on
There's not
yours. You
many.
should say, okay, who would you guys put him against next? Say.
Yeah, really. I mean, I looked at the list today, and I'm like, I had to scroll and scroll and scroll. I'm like, God damn, there's nobody that there's nobody I would feel confident that he would beat, based on what he showed.
That's crazy to think about.
It is wild. It is wild. And then the funny part is, I completely forgot about this, but someone put it in the comments today. You remember him saying he would have put up a better fight against Islam than Charles did this past week? And I'm like, oh man, that did not age well. That did not age well. He would have gotten
Mm-hmm.
smoked.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they go. It's like, what do you do? I mean, I would assume they're going to continue to try and build him up. But how?
Yeah, I mean, you have
It's going
to.
to be a challenge.
I don't know.
Before we kind of wrap up
Yeah.
the interview, maybe you could talk to people about where they can find your stuff and, what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Hayjivepicks. If you could see, I don't know if you could see my username on here. Should be up there. Yeah. Hayjivepicks on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. I post all my stuff on most of those. And then at the double leg, it should be in my link in my bio. That's my MMA show with the parlay. We do full card breakdowns for every fight card. They're usually about an hour, hour 10. Go over every fight, give our predictions, and then we'll talk MMA news, and then we'll do the full card recaps after the fights. So putting out a lot of UFC stuff, and I'm really disappointed that we're gonna have a month off after this Saturday. It's gonna be a rough drought, even though we got the holidays and everything. Gonna have a whole month off.
Just dig in.
What are we gonna do?
Find some.
I don't know. Maybe
That's what you need to do. Dig in the news, and you'll find something. Trust me.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's always some good MMA news. So there'll be enough out there, but just disappointing we don't get any live fights. But
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me
man.
on.
Anytime you want
Appreciate
to
it.
come back on, or anytime you want to do something, be awesome. All right.
Absolutely, man.
Great talking to you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. You as well.